This video contains spoilers for Samurai Jack Season 5. Jack is back with episode 92 after coming off the heels of episode 54, which may seem odd at first, but it actually fits the time skip perfectly. Yeah, I'm really happy that the show came back when it did. I actually just picked Samurai Jack up when the announcement came that was getting that extra season. Like, I actually just started watching it, and I was like, oh, so there's going to be a conclusion now. So, unlike a lot of fans who are waiting years and years for this, I actually only got into the show very, very recently. And before you say anything, it wasn't Season 5 that actually got me hooked. It was the fact that that first episode, the very first episode where there's very little dialogue, where we see Jack training throughout his life, yeah, that episode was what hooked me on the series. The silence, the artistry, all that stuff. But we're back, and it's a completely different opening to the show this time, because for some people, I guess, this is kind of a reintroduction to the series, and it fits perfectly, because you don't have to watch the original to actually watch this. Like, the first opening scene, I was actually caught kind of by surprise, because when you watch Samurai Jack, the original 4 seasons, it's in a different aspect ratio than what this one's in. So this one's in the full screen, it's in HD, and I'm just sitting there in front of my computer kind of looking at him like, wow, this is completely different, but at the same time familiar. Oh, that opening scene, I know it got kind of spoiled because that was what they used to hook people, and it was actually the preview on iTunes, but just seeing it in its entirety, it's like anything in Samurai Jack, it's just a visual masterpiece. It's visual art. That's the only way I can describe it. And yeah, coming back on Samurai Jack after having recently finished it, like a couple days ago I actually got to the end of the original run. I run an animation club at my university, and one of the other guys in the club actually pitched forth Samurai Jack to watch, and we ended up watching it. So, yeah, we just recently finished it, and we actually get to showcase this new episode this Friday, which I'm excited about. Yeah, I'm just... what can I say about this series? I'm just so happy it's back. Like, I always was aware of Samurai Jack. Like, I knew what it was about. Like, I knew the premise. I knew about a coup. I knew about some of the lines. I knew a couple moments. I'd seen clips online. It's like one of those shows that was always in the back of my mind, that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that one day, but it wasn't top priority. Like, I think it was 6th on my to watch list when I first started the year, but then it got bumped up by that animation club. Yeah, I think I prioritized Invader Sim over it. I think that was a big one, because I kind of saw a couple clips of Invader Sim online, which got me hooked into that. But yeah, with this one, just the way it jumps into things, it does feel, how do I put this? I'm not sure if many of you watch Star Wars Rebels, but the way they start this episode, it feels very much like Star Wars Rebels does. It feels like, because Clone Wars got cancelled pretty early, and kind of in the middle of things, Dave Filoni, when writing Rebels, he acts like the stories that he had planned for Clone Wars actually did happen. Like, he has a bunch of story reels and ideas that came into fruition, especially with a couple plots involving certain characters. But, like, it feels very much like that. It feels that things have happened. This world didn't just stagnate while we were in that dead zone, while there was nothing going on. It feels like things continue to turn, like, not just Jack losing his sword, but you see the way he walks around. Like, he wouldn't have just picked up wearing all this armor and carrying all these weapons in one day. No, it's not really, you don't really go from, like, even when he put on armor in the first episode, like, well, the third episode, but the movie, it wasn't like he was toting around guns and he had all these different weapons, like when the wrist guards suddenly turn into the shield kind of like weapons. going all Tapu Koko on everyone, but it's not like that. It feels like you can tell there's this he gradually got to this point. It wasn't just a random, oh, he's given up and he'll be fixed in one day. No, I bet things are going to continue throughout this series, and judging by the way this first episode ends, it's going to continue that way. Like, in the original series, like, we did see Jack using different weapons, but here he's, like, toting around machine guns and laser guns and all sorts of things, which, oh, I'm just, the way they characterized him here is both adult, but also the same. You can easily see the Jack from the original series getting to this point. It isn't completely off in the wild. You're not getting this weird, sudden development. It's very well done. Another thing I'm happy about is the way they moved to Adult Swim. They still kept it Samurai Jack. It's still Samurai Jack. It's not blood, guts, and gore and he's fighting humans. No, he's still chopping up robots. Heck, there's very little blood, but they use it to stylize the scene. They don't just use it to have blood, guts, and gore in the scene. For example, like Rick and Morty, as much as I love that show, there are some times when they just overdo it on the blood and guts and gore and stuff like that. It's used to stylize it, but it's feels like if it were on any other network, the story would completely change. Here, I can totally see the same scenarios happening without this. Although there are some darker themes explored here, which I'm very happy to see in this. Just it expands it quite a bit. But yeah, like just seeing just seeing him fight robots still, it still feels that way. And at the end, you get this very crazy and kooky villain who isn't dark and evil and stuff. He's just, well, he burns down an entire village, but you know what I mean. He's very silly. He's got that very silly voice, but in the traditional Samurai Jack fashion, he's starting to like sing at first, and you think, oh, this is kind of ridiculous and goes against the plot, but then he starts using this musical attribute to his advantage with his fighting style and stuff, and you completely forget that it's contradicting kind of the mood. It kind of blends itself into the mood, which is very clever writing. You get this you get these sillier aspects blending themselves into the darker parts, and you get these darker aspects blending themselves into the sillier parts. Everything blends together beautifully, and if it's jarring at first, like I remember the cult birth scene, I was like, that kind of put me off a little bit. It was like when I did first start watching Rick and Morty and Lawnmower Dog. I remember the pleasure pit part. That part kind of weirded me out a bit, but then it got funny again when they kept going. Here it's not going for comedy so much, but you get used to it. It's jarring at first, but it fits in the end. It's not like it just continues to be weird and odd and out of place. It actually finds itself a home in the show. And yeah, like, just the tone was well done, everything was well done there, but overall the concepts they went through, it's very much set up, and you also got a bit of payoff here. Like, we see Jack fight, they use the action scenes, but they are setting up things. Like, we get this knight who's completely shrouded in green. There's these sickly, pestilent greens. They remind me quite a bit of I don't know if any of you play certain games, but sometimes when you see an undead character, sometimes they'll be surrounded with kind of this like sickly green, this bright, almost toxic green. We get that on this one character, so there's very much a color symbolism that they used to use in the original show. Like, you had Aku in complete black and Jack in white. Here they're using that color to showcase where the characters are at. If you notice, Jack's armor is very much blacks and grays. He's got this beard. The only part of his face the only part of him that is like lightly colored still is that little part of his face you can see. And he seems to be like, it just shows how dark his mind is, how dark everything is. You get we get this assassin character who has these more bright, colorful colors that showcase the fact that he's more playful, he's more energized, but we also get these dark, metallic parts that showcase that he is dangerous still. He's still unnatural, mechanical, and it works very well to the show's advantage. This episode followed a very interesting plot, to say the least. Like I said earlier, it's a lot of setup rather than payoff. Like, if you're not paying close attention, or it's kind of left ambiguous, but like, we see the Daughters of Aku, they're called, which I'm not sure if that means they're like half demon or if that's just the cult name. I think it's just the cult name because they don't really display supernatural powers, but at the same time, this woman gave birth to 7 daughters, which is very unlikely in its own, but hey, it's fiction. You can do whatever you want. Weird stuff like that happens all the time. It's actually better when that stuff happens. It's more entertaining. We get these characters, and they're advancing in age rapidly, and at first I'm like, is this rapid aging, or are we showing this passage of time? I feel like it's more like we're showing years past. Like, if you actually read scripts by Jendi talking about the episode, he says Jack's episode takes place over a couple days for Jack. Even when he's talking to the assassin at the end, he says it's been a few days. He destroyed this place a few days ago. So time itself, like the theme song says, it's kind of lost its effect on the show. It's no longer as big of a player, which works very well into the way they're telling the story. But at the same time, that's maybe the one flaw with this episode, is due to the fact they have to show these two parts of the story with very different time frames. They don't blend nicely, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter. You get some cool visuals, you get some character development for these villains, which is very interesting. They kind of see the world as Aku is very much back in like season 1, when Aku was reading fairy tales to the children, and he was trying to brainwash them by replacing him, like switching him and Jack. So Jack was the villain and he was the hero. It's very much like that, but done in more sinister light and how it actually works. This way we actually get these characters completely devoted to him. And we only actually ever really get character development for one of these sisters, and that one's name is Ashi. So I'm assuming she's probably gonna be like the final boss character. She's going to be she's gonna do something. There's going to be something more prominent to her compared to her sisters, who I'm starting to expect are gonna be kind of like the cannon fodder villains. It kind of takes me back to that one episode where Jack's going through the desert and all these villages full of robots are being destroyed, and he eventually comes across those, like, I'm not sure how many, but there were quite a few of these robots the scientists built. It's the one where he used the mechanical arm, and it finally comes down to the one, and we get a lot more attention paid to that one. I feel like this Ashi character is going to be in that light, and I'm not sure how villainous these characters are going to be, but judging by the fact that their mother is voiced by Grey Delisle, who voices Azula, and plenty of other sinister characters, well, I'm pretty sure it's going to, just judging by the way it's built up, it's either going to end up with, she's going to die and kind of play the role as like a pseudo-final boss, or you get this turnaround, which doesn't really have much evidence towards it right now, but you never know with the way things can go. It can go either way. It could end up, I don't know, like, it's one of those things that's quizzical. You don't really know where it's going to go. Yeah, just that entire cult was kind of confusing. I'm hoping we get a bit more fleshing out of it, but it still works. You kind of get like this, a lot of elements in it work, like when they're training the girls. That's when it makes more sense. It's just like kind of the setup for this cult. It's weird, and it's kind of dark and uncomfortable. It's interesting. It's a new way to look at the show, and I'm happy that we actually got to see some villains who are, I don't know, how do I word this? I'm just gonna dump that. I don't know what to say. I think I'm just repeating myself. My first thought when I saw that was there were so many babies. Like, you see this woman giving birth, and just every time a baby came out, I was just like, geez, lady, that's a lot. And it turns out she's not really the most motherly character. She, like, gets in robes, like, right after giving birth, which props to her. I'm pretty sure anyone who can walk around and, like, complete a whole sermon when she just finished giving birth is deserving of something. Yeah, it's just, I'm wondering if she'll play a role later, or is that the last we see of this cult? Are we just gonna see the daughters? I'm not sure if the entire cult's called the daughters or just the 7 girls. I think it might be the cult, but regardless, yeah, I'm not sure how to put them, but quite a few things in this episode were very different from the original show, which is to be expected. It's on Adult Swim, it's experiencing darker themes. Like when Jack left that danger behind. Like, at the beginning we see him heroically saving these 3 people. You think, oh, he's still Jack, he's still gonna do all this stuff, but then an explosion happens in the distance and he keeps going. He returns to it eventually, but he has this guilt, he has like almost a survivor guilt over what happened to his people, and I think that's finally getting to him. Like, kind of got hints of it originally, but here it's really coming to fruition, and in some really unnerving scenes. Like, Jack has a few scenes where he hallucinates like children around him asking, just begging for help, and like one of the most unnerving shots, like despite the fact that there is blood, there are intense shots in here. Probably the most intense moment was when the leaves are falling from the trees, and it's his father washing down the river, then his mother washing down the river, then a whole bunch of leaves start falling, and just his entire people looking like gruesome, deformed zombies just riding down this river. Then you see this personified samurai on a horse. Kind of reminded me, that's that pestilent kind of color again. I'm not sure where they're going with that. Does he have Jack's sword? Is he a personification of death? Is he just some kind of final boss, a greater scope villain? I'm not sure, but I'm sure we'll find out eventually, and when we do, it's probably going to be about as unnerving as I think, because that character is intimidating. But that is a beautiful, just eerie shot, that entire scene where you have leaves rushing down the river. That scene really got to me. That's kind of when it felt like, it's when it really started to feel like, yes, there are some really adult themes in here. I don't, like, what makes the show adult and more mature is not the fact that they're able to go violent, blood, guts, and gore everywhere. It's the fact that they can explore this. They can explore the survivor guilt quite a bit. They can explore all these concepts that are going to play into the show later. I'm not sure quite how, but Samurai Jack is, this 5th season is going to surprise me. Jendi is a legend in the animation community for a reason. He knows how to play with things. By the way, the art of the show, I just thought of that when I was talking about the leaves falling. This brilliant autumn forest is just gorgeous to look at. The way they draw fire, the way they draw all these things, it's just like, it's creepy, it's beautiful, it goes all these directions that it wants to be, and the scenery really showcases the mood. Especially when, like, there's, like, these screaming faces in the fire, these kind of demonic faces. It reminds me quite a bit of, watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, when she's running through the forest. Like, it's something, like, I think kids could watch this. Not, like, little kids, but maybe around 14, but, or younger, depending, it kind of depends on the kid, honestly. You can't really judge it. Some kids are more emotionally prepared, some aren't. Like, I know I never watched anything, like, I couldn't handle blood, guts, and gore until I was, even now, I have a hard time watching that. Like, I remember watching Alien, that that freaked me out. I still can't watch that. But yeah, some people are prepared for it, some people aren't. Some people could find this stuff really tame, others could find it really intense, or as I found it, like kind of just really artistically showing what the character's going through. And yeah, like I'm kind of happy they went through with the way that Jack doesn't age in this show, because to bring up Star Wars Rebels again, I'm not sure if any of you watch Star Wars Clone Wars, but Darth Maul's alive, just roll with it. In Rebels, he's years are kind of catching up with him. He moves a bit slower, he's a little bit different. This Jack when he's in like the future, since he hasn't aged at all, he's still able to keep up the same level of fitness fighting, like when he's dragging that really heavy scimitar across the ground and then slices the assassin in half with it. Like, if Jack was being portrayed as like 50 years older, I wouldn't be able to buy that. I just like it kind of, and if he was moving slower, it wouldn't have been as entertaining. The fact that he's the same age really makes this scene work. Just a couple things like harboring back, like the credits, to play the old theme song, and they said they're going to play the theme song, like the old one, in the upcoming episodes, but it would be like a little, strangely contrasting if you suddenly went from will.i.am rapping to, suddenly hearing, just going into this cult birth scene, which is understandable. There's a couple more callbacks, but overall, like, the entire show has, like, an art lift. Like, it's been matured up, the style's a bit different, it's a little less blocky, it's a lot more rounded, I noticed. And there are a few things that they're actually staying away from that I'm really happy they are. If any of you remember, right after Mako died in Avatar: The Last Airbender, they didn't have Iroh speak for a while. I thought they were going to do the same thing here with Aku, but they're not. But they did do it very cleverly. Like, you hear him over the phone, so his voice is somewhat muffled. So they're kind of hiding Aku's voice, so you kind of get into this show. So when you watch it in canonical order, you don't really notice the change, because this voice actor, I think it's Greg Baldwin, I think that's the voice actor, he does a really good job. But if you were to play an episode with Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender next to one with him in like season 3, you would notice that subtle difference. So I'm hoping they keep Aku out of this until maybe the second half of the season. Like, don't actually have him in person. I know he's a great character and he's hilarious, but I'm hoping they can, like, when you hear his voice, like, I remember watching Legend of Korra, when you hear this guy's voicing Iroh, it sounds like Iroh. It doesn't sound like someone pretending to be Iroh. So giving us that time to adjust to the fact that Mako's gone is going to really, really help sell the way that this portrayal of Aku is going to be. I'm happy with how they're playing it so far. I hope they keep up with that. I will probably keep a track of that. Like, I'll probably mention if I noticed if there was a subtle inflection difference or not. Like, you can tell in this episode, but it's muffled by the phone, so it doesn't sound too out of place. So I'm hoping they don't overutilize him yet. As much as I want to see Aku, as much as I want to see him, I kind of have to let it be. Yeah, beyond that, this entire show, I'm glad the revival is here. I'm glad I got into it at the perfect moment. I know I probably don't have the same attachment to the show as everyone else, because I've only actually watched the series once, but I was a massive fan of it, and it's had a profound influence on me, in terms of my writing. I've kind of gone away from very dialogue-heavy scenes. I started experimenting with just writing things where there were just like noises, like describing noises, describing something. I know this is visual and audio, but I'm glad it influenced me the way it did, because it kind of calms things down from my usual way of writing things. And I'm hoping this season can have the same effect on me, because I really enjoyed Samurai Jack seasons 1 through 4, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I know I kind of tried experimenting with YouTube. I really wanted to get my thoughts out about it. I kind of just jumped into this a couple days ago. So if I'm rambling and say a lot or don't do very concise, if I start like something and don't finish it and I do something not very concisely, that would be because I'm new. I'm just kind of rambling, saying my thoughts. There's not much effort put into these, well there is, but kind of just saying what I want about the show, and I'm just happy it's getting a conclusion, because I can't imagine getting to season 4 and then just being left without a conclusion. Like, that's just like I can't imagine that. I was kind of spoiled. I got the announcement I think 2 days after I watched the premiere movie. Like, I am a new fan to the show, and that might have an effect on the way I review it. It might not. I'll just kind of try to cover it the way I am. Just give thoughts and analysis. I might say something profound. I might just repeat the same thing over and over again. I don't really know. I don't really cut anything from these. Even if I were to pause for 5 minutes and just drink water, I would cut that out. But, I'm looking forward to the way they shoot the theme song for next episode. I can't wait to see it, because, well, gotta get back to the past, Samurai Jack. That's so catchy. It's you can't really do anything with that. But yeah, it's just one 22-minute episode, and it's already done so much to set up this world, taking the elements of the old, mixing it with the new, and you get so much development. I can't wait to see what they do with this. I'm excited, and I guess I'll see you guys next week with hopefully more to say, because I'm excited to see what these Daughters of Aku, I want to see them, what they do. I want to see them fleshed out a bit more. So, just let me know what you thought in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.